Hello, I'm Jason Heinze, back with another episode of the Good Fight podcast. Very thrilled to be here today with another Jason Messenger of RRB in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And Jason, thanks so much for joining me. It was my
Bald
pleasure.
Jason.
Sorry, what was that?
Two bald Jason.
Two bald Jasons. The internet has been asking for it for a long time, and now we're finally delivering. So I'm going to introduce you to everybody here, and I think it's appropriate that even on your firm bio, you managed to bring in an '80s reference. I appreciate that. So,
100%
so when his Top Gun inspired childhood dream of being a fighter pilot was quashed by a fear of heights and his need for glasses, and that's a need which I'm ignoring right now, he focused on another dream, becoming a lawyer. He's been with the firm for more than 16 years, considers himself fortunate to help real people with real life problems. Jason's practicing in all types of civil litigation, representing individuals in PI and death claims arising from auto accidents, falls, product liability, nursing home neglect and abuse, as well as other types of injuries and accidents. He also represents victims of sexual assault that took place in medical facilities and nursing homes. Looks like you also represent, which I didn't realize, Jason, individuals and businesses in insurance disputes and bad faith claims.
Less is what I'm doing now, but I realized that bio I wrote 3 years ago, so I'm here 19 years now at this point.
Quite all right. Well, there's
my date in there.
Well, you've clearly been doing a great job at all of these things because you've been named one of Oklahoma's best lawyers in America in plaintiffs' personal injury and civil rights. You've also been named Super Lawyers Rising Star in civil litigation 7 times. And then a little about your history, which maybe we'll talk about if it comes up. But before joining the firm, you defended insurance companies and their insureds in litigation after seeing firsthand how insurance companies often place profits over their customers. And I like this. And not just over their customers, but those that work for them. Sounds like the voice of experience there. You left that side of the fence, now helping those who've been harmed by the actions of someone else. I think a final thing to note for folks out there in internet land, ardent fan of the Arkansas Razorbacks as well as the Boston Red Sox. And you have a goal of seeing a baseball game in every major league ballpark.
Yeah, I'm terribly behind on that right now.
Well, that was so that's something that that's something that we hadn't discussed in our previous chats. So where how do things stand now in terms of your goal to see a game in every major ballpark?
I think I'm at 10. And so I've got 20 left.
Okay.
Got a friend of mine that we've managed to go to a bunch of those, but I have not. We are behind. He had kids, I had kids, he had more kids, so we're behind a little bit on our goal.
Gotcha.
Another Jason, by the way.
Are you kidding me?
No, not at all. It's like I told you before. It's if you're born in the 70s, guy, there's a pretty good pool. If your name's Jason, you were born in the 70s, maybe the early 80s. And a lot of us intellectually challenged you.
Right. That's part of how we connected was we went to the same conference and the organizer mistook me for you, and I think vice versa as well, right? Well, if we start with your childhood dream of being a fighter pilot, one that I shared after watching Top Gun many times. So we've started there. And then somewhere along the way, you found you needed glasses and didn't like heights. What would you say brought you into this line of work particularly?
It's not any sort of grand notion of, I want to help people. Or it was really a shallow 10-year-olds seeing my uncle, who was a lawyer. We went to visit him and my grandparents and all that. When I was a child, and he had a red Porsche 911 Turbo. I always said it's an 86 because that's the year Top Gun came out, and maybe it's an 87. But either way, I saw that car, and that became second behind fighter pilot like Maverick and Iceman and all that on Top Gun. And then when that didn't work out, that kind of moved where I still like Porsches, so that moved up to I only get a Porsche one day, and so I'll become a lawyer because after all, we all must drive Porsches, right? So
Right, right. I like that for me also is just a I mean that was one of my that Porsche 911. I don't know what it is about the mind of like, like 9 and 10-year-old boys in the 80s, but it was like Top Gun and Porsches basically.
That's my childhood bedroom. Still has a Porsche 911 on the wall. Looks like my uncle's did. Red with the spoiler on the back. All of that. So,
That's hilarious. No, you have to have the spoiler as well.
oh yeah.
And
I,
so, where are you on the? So we've already reviewed your sort of where you are and seeing all the ballparks. Where are you in terms of your Porsche collection right now?
I've got a toy one over here off camera that you can't see. That's about as close as I've got. So,
Gotcha.
um, I tell people I have a Porsche, I just don't own it yet because I'm still, I've got, as you know, law school is not cheap, and so many of us have to take out loans. And so when I got done with law school and a little bit of college, I had a Porsche. It just takes me 30 years to pay it off, and maybe at the end I'll get one and probably to pay on that too. So I'm not
Right.
close to the,
No, I mean, I think there are, that I think we can add that to the list of things that you and I have in common. It's those law school loan payments. So,
yep. Yep, that's what a lot of us have in common. 'Cause even with scholarships, you end up still walking away. If you were looking at his scholarship, walking away with debt. And so, uh,
yeah, indeed, indeed. Well, it looks like you're doing the right things um to work off that debt. I mean, you're now a partner at the firm and been there for 16 years, and I think some of the audience would probably like to hear as well what that sort of switch when you were, as you say in your bio, going to the other side of the fence after working on the defense side. Can you tell us a little bit about um, how that played out for you? And I know that's something that a lot of people contemplate.
yeah, I well, when I went to law school, I didn't know what I was going to do. I thought I was going to be I don't know if I was going to be a trial lawyer or a corporate lawyer or a prosecutor, what I was going to do. Um, I had a business degree, didn't know if I'd been using that at all. And so, um, while in law school, I got a job with a local firm here that did civil defense work. And I took that job mainly because they were hiring and they would hire me. And so I started off with that job and worked there on and off all during law school after that first year. And when I got out, um, they were one of the firms that had offered me a job and started working there. Got a lot of great experience early on. And then after about 3 years, some changes there at that firm led to me looking to go elsewhere. And um, honestly, I was probably going to go in and working for another defense firm because that's how that's experience, important, all of that. And uh, through a recruiter, found about this firm where I'm at now, and we're hiring. A few interviews with them, and then ended up getting hired. Didn't I came from the defense bar, and as a young defense lawyer, I just assumed that you know, lawyers on this side of the fence were ambulance chasers or were um, insert whatever stigma you want about plaintiff lawyers. And so I didn't think I'd be here for very long. And then years and years later, I'm still here. So that transition was, we would joke about it for a while that we had to go through therapy because you have to transition from being pessimistic or suspect of every single little claim that's made, or everything you hear, to switching sides completely, and now you're trying to advance those cases that you used to be so jaded about. I think that's what I was jaded a little bit. And going back to the bio, um, there's a lot of lawyers that I know, the lawyers I worked for back then in the early to mid 2000s, they are still doing defense work and representing insurance companies. You get a lot of great experience. Unfortunately, you also get experience at appealing your bills and things like that when they strike your hourly, time records because they don't apply a certain rule, or they think that you appearing at a certain court conference is a secretarial function, so therefore you shouldn't get paid for that. And so I left behind the field of bill appeals and defending those things to coming over here, and now I don't have to worry about the billable hour, but now I'm dealing with real people on a daily basis that are strangers to the legal world. But
So I want to touch on what you said about the kind of therapy. You you jokingly mentioned therapy. You also talked about your viewpoint of personal injury attorneys as ambulance chasers. That's part of the reason why I have this podcast, because I think a lot of people, have it totally wrong about you guys. So tell me about that therapy process, and then tell me what you've learned over time.
Yeah, it just takes a different way of looking at things. It takes a different way of approaching a case when you're the one bringing the claim. As far as evaluating from step one, on the defense side, you're always reacting. On the plaintiff side, you have to be proactive at first and really evaluate the case and decide, is there something here or not? And that's what took the hardest adjustment, because I was always looking at why it couldn't be a case instead of why could it be a case. And so, that's the part that took some adjusting, and I was able to eventually get to it. I'm still maybe a little bit more conservative than my law partner, who's been doing enough plaintiff work since 1990 for the most part. But for me, it did take some adjustment. Former partner of mine, he did defense work for 25 years, I think it was. And so he and I both joined the firm within a short time of each other, and we both kind of had to go through that, therapy a little bit with learning how to evaluate and adjust cases from this side of the fence versus looking at why it can't be a case or why it's not a case that's worth as much as what they say it's worth. So that's where it's taken that adjustment. So yeah, we call it therapy, but
Well, maybe it's re-education. You've been
there you go.
yeah. And I wonder, are there any cases that have stood out to you that were an important part in that transition process, or was it just something that was just a matter of time that you had to go through?
Well, I thought about that. There's really two. There's one early on when I joined the firm in 2006, I think it was. Within the first month or two, a case came in that had already been rejected by two of the law firms, and it was a man who had been killed in prison. And you first have that immediate stigma, okay, it's a dead inmate. Okay, he's a guy who's in prison for something. And once I started delving into it, I realized, well, he's in prison. He had broken the law, but there's a lot of circumstances to why he ended up in prison. And, so that case, it was my first indoctrination really into evaluating the case from start and trying to get over that hump of immediately assuming that once a dead inmate, that's bad and all. This man had been killed by a cellmate. He was known to be very, very difficult to deal with. He had actually suffered long before he'd ever been in prison. He was a deputy for a local county and was working on the side for his father, this being Oklahoma, on an oil and gas rig. And there had been a gas explosion, and he suffered a brain injury. And it had actually been partially lobotomized. And he, from that point forward, was like a large child in a man's body. He was just a child. And he had, at that point, just gone downhill. And ultimately what ended up in prison was he had violated a protective order by being within, a certain number of feet of someone, or I don't remember the exact circumstances. Ends up in a local county jail. Was in a county jail. He had kept a portion of his disposable razor in his Bible. So having contraband in a jail. And so he ended up having a violation, probation, ends up in prison. Prison because of his brain injury, couldn't control his behavior, and it was cycling through cellmates. I think the longest guy that stayed in a cell with him was 2 weeks. And finally, they moved in a guy who's a convicted murderer. And he lasted maybe 48 hours before he assaulted and killed the guy. And what we kind of discovered through going through the case was, well, it's more than just a dead inmate. He had a nurse, teacher, and a law enforcement officer for children. He, he was there again largely because he was a grown child, and the system wasn't able to deal with him. So he ends up getting killed. And that case really forced me to kind of change and look at how I view things, and realizing that, it's not, there's something behind all that. It's not just he's a deceased inmate. There was a lot that went into that. So.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that, I mean, as you said, even if you don't feel like have that reaction yourself, you can certainly imagine people like, okay, well, yeah, as you said, he was there for a reason, and maybe he got what was coming to him. And so, but as you say, you told that story, and then all of a sudden that what happened takes on a totally new light. It's so was that a case that you ended up trying to a jury?
Yeah, actually, it took 3 years or so, I think, get to trial finally. We spent, I think it was 7 or 8 days in trial, ended up getting a $6.5 million verdict, which again surprised me a little bit. It didn't surprise me because I understood the facts, but this surprised me and reminded me that he was more than just a deceased inmate. And we didn't make the case about him as much as made the case about what the prison had done or what they had failed to do when it came to housing this guy and who they housed him with. And that ended up being a very good recovery in the case. It ended up, I think, hopefully changing some things. Certainly helped these 3 adult kids that he had and grandkids that he had. And the clients were great too, because they were patient. And we hear sometimes people say, well, it's not about the money. It's not about the money. And for these people, they really meant it. They all had gone on and had careers and families, and they didn't need that money. It was about doing what was right. And, the proverbial justice that sometimes people talk about, that case was about getting justice. The civil system, all we can do is get money, and they understood that, and they were patient and great with us throughout the case, and ultimately went on appeal and all of that. But we were able to get it done ultimately.
That I'm just I think it's so interesting. Just that storytelling bit. I mean, I guess you said that you made it more about the prison and their conduct, or the official conduct, rather than about the deceased individual. But that must have been a part of it as well, right? Just kind of humanizing him to a certain extent, or was that truly not something that you brought to the jury?
I mean, none of my clients testified. We were able to show a video of them arriving to his cell. We were able to establish some things about how he behaved prior to him getting murdered, how he behaved with others, the challenges that he presented for the staff and for his cellmates and other people there. So we were able to tell that story a little bit about him. We were able to bring in a few things about how he ended up on the wrong side of the law to begin with. But we never even put our clients on the stand. We never put any family member on the stand at all. The defense did not either. And so we were able to tell the story through really the Department of Corrections and the records of the prison itself too, to show this is what this guy had been like. This is where he ended up, and perhaps why he ended up in the position that he was in ultimately, which was being killed by a cellmate.
I mean, I realize we're getting into the weeds here about this one case, but I think this is really interesting because I think this is something that I read about a lot and hear about a lot from talking with other attorneys is, it seems like those cases that other attorneys have already turned down, those often are the really interesting ones. And I just wonder if was there something that really stood out to you or to your team that was that said, hey, no, we really want to take this on, or was it a combination of things?
There have been some investigation done prior to us getting the case. There have been some things that pertained, some official, maybe not some, that were, I guess, through some back channels, some hearsay from others that allowed us to say, look, we need to delve into this more. There was an appeal that was going on, so we were able to get some records that way. And we were able to get some things from the criminal trial where the guy, the murdering cellmate, where he was convicted and all that. We were able to get some information from that case and really start to see maybe some things under the surface that may have happened that led us to say, you know what, let's take this case. But we don't know if they intended for this guy to get killed, intended for him to get beat up. Did they just not think and just put two guys together that really should never have been together? So there's just enough there that allowed us to, okay, let's make sure the lawsuit gets filed and let's do some discovery. And that was back in the days before we had everything on a hard drive or a little floppy disk or thumb drive. I had at that time 20 boxes worth of the material, just paper and stuff. So it was something that we were able to just get some early information on and just continue to develop as we went into the case. And frankly, the murderer even helped us too. We took his deposition and gave some very favorable testimony, ultimately to what was happening on the prison side of things. That led us to keep going on with it.
Okay. So, I mean, it sounds like just some really diligent investigative or just some really good research on your part to start to identify all these different strands of what was really going on there.
Yeah. I think we turned once or twice. And I say we turned, I don't know that I ever communicated to the clients, but it was internal, like, no. And then, okay, maybe. And then, no. And then about the time I'm getting ready to deliver the no, I'm sorry, which these people had already heard a couple times before, I don't know what it was or what was said or what we found that said, you know what, forget it. We've got something here. Let's go with it. And it's the first certainly big case that I had, and it consumed my life for a good 3+ years. So
yeah. So I'm
not including.
There's another question I was going to ask, but I'm a little more interested in pursuing that. So tell me about that process of how it consumed your life. I've never gone to trial. I've done many Social Security disability hearings, but there's not opposing counsel there. There's not a jury. So talk to me about what that's like to have your life consumed by a case like that.
You have a lawyer, so the grunt on the ground, having to dig through, I don't remember how many pages of documents, and it's been too long ago, but there was, like I said, about 20 boxes worth of stuff. And I had to go through, look at all of those, every single page. Some of it was duplicate, some of it wasn't. Catalog it all, because again, this was so early enough that you weren't getting electronic, or we could just copy and paste things, or maybe easily organize that, or buy a tool that will organize it for you. I had to literally go through all those boxes and know what was in each one. And so that plus, it was a heavily fought case. So there were a lot of briefs and things being filed, I think we took maybe 15 depositions to 20 depositions in that case, from inmates to correctional officers to those are private prison corporate people. There was experts, and there was just a wide range of stuff that we had to go through to get us to that point where we finally got a trial. And then once we got the trial, got the verdict, I think the appeal went on for another 2 years after that. So I think it finally got resolved. The appeal ended in 2011, and it consumed certainly those first 3 years, 2006 and 2009, and then once we got the appeal part done, the briefing done, it sat for a while longer until in 2011 or so.
Okay, so I mean, this is in terms of, sounds like in terms of your development as an attorney, and particularly making that shift from the defense side to now the plaintiff side. I mean, it sounds like a kind of a watershed case for you. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, it was. That was the one that really introduced me to this normal, regular people as a lawyer. Having clients that was just like, whatever you say, you're the lawyer. And I'm thinking, I just got out of school just a few years ago, but okay. And so they did trust us.
Well, these clients in particular, because that, I don't remember how many cases I had back then, but this was certainly the one that was the most time consuming. And so from being 3 years out of law school at the start of their case all the way through, they trusted me, which I thought was silly. Of course, I had help here from my then boss, now partner, and so it was something that really allowed me to get used to representing regular people who don't live in this legal world, as opposed to insurance adjusters that I had previous experience with that, well, they deal with lawsuits and lawyers all the time. And so it was a completely different experience. And they're really the first ones that helped me learn how to deal with just regular people.
Right. Okay. So probably using a medical analogy, probably a different bedside manner is needed for working with the people, with your clients now.
Yeah. We got out of law school, you learn all these fancy Latin words and all of that, and then you realize I'm not going to talk to people like that. Maybe another lawyer, then you realize, no, once you're out of school for about a year, you forget all that Latin stuff and you just talk to people like you would normally if you want to have a good, normal conversation. So you avoid the legalese and keep it simple, right?
Well, I think that's what's so interesting about the plaintiff work in particular, or the personal injury work, is that you might have a very sophisticated motions practice, and then, but to the extent that you have a jury in play, you can't go in there and just try to sound like a torts professor, right?
Right. Right. Yeah. You just have to, it's the old KISS method. You got to keep it simple. And so, you start learning, and as now I have young lawyers working here, or even paralegals and stuff. You just got to keep it simple. Talk to them like normal. You don't have to use all these fancy words to prove that you're smart, because they've hired us for a reason. So you've already got that built-in credibility. So just, you're a normal person, talk to them like a normal person. And so when you're talking to a jury, it's the same way. It's just keeping it simple. Now you get to jury instructions, and then you got to try to make those simple, because those are usually filled with some legalese in there. And a few words that I still insist are probably made up, that no one but lawyers ever uses. So, it's one of those things that you just have to learn how to, again, talk to people like you did before you had a legal education. So,
right. No, which I think is probably easier said than done sometimes, to be able to connect with folks that way. So obviously that case we've been talking about, representing I guess the estate of the deceased inmate. Are there other cases that I mean, I sort of like it would be neat if this worked, that there were just kind of different cases you could chart that represented maybe milestones in your career. Are there any others that they come to mind, or is it not as neat and tidy as that?
Well, you know, probably get asked this from family too. It's like, well, tell me about some of the interesting cases you're working on. And it's, well, the interesting cases I'm working on, the good cases I'm working on are usually, someone's really, really bad day or a family's really bad life experience. And so recently we had done an event here at the office, and as part of that, we showed the staff and our attorneys a video that we had done on our website and talked to them about the power of getting reviews from clients and what those reviews can do. And one of the former clients, part of a family, he had done a review. They showed that review that he did, and I hadn't seen it. And the case had been over for, I think, 5, 6, 7 years at that point. And it was a case involving a young mother who, on a Sunday evening, was going to pick up her kids who had stayed at grandma's house for the weekend. And so she was slowing and coming to a stop to turn into the church parking lot where the kids were there. Mother-in-law her grandmother was there. And, the kids are waving to mom and all that. And about that time, she's stopped waiting to turn. She gets hit by a car going 65, which was the speed limit. He never hit his brakes, hits her, knocks her into oncoming traffic and down into a ditch. She was wearing her seatbelt and everything, but unfortunately the force of the impact essentially broke her neck, and she ended up dying. And all this happened in front of her mother and two young kids. And that case took a couple of years, I think, to get to fruition. She had left behind she was married. She had a husband who was a veteran. Her parents were divorced. Her father was living with her and her husband and their 2 boys, because her husband was away a lot because of his career. And so we helped that family. We were able to bring a lawsuit. The guy was driving a company vehicle. And so we were able to bring a lawsuit, go through some discovery, and get the family some answers, first of all, and ultimately get a recovery to help that man raise now 2 boys alone that he wasn't planning on raising before. And so that case stood out too, because it's just helping regular, normal people on what is normally a rear-end car accident, but it was a rear-end car accident with a really, really bad result. And that family was another one that were incredibly understanding, under some really difficult circumstances, were good to work with, and trusted us to do what we could to get the best possible outcome for them. And that one stands out in recent years as one of the more emotional cases that we've had. It was difficult. And so when I watched that review video that the father-in-law had done, or father had done, several years ago now, I had seen it, and it about got me teared up. So it was a good one. It was a good reminder for why we do this. Most cases, fortunately, are not like that, but those cases do come along, and there's usually 1 or 2 of them, unfortunately, always around. And you try to do the best you can to help a family through a really, really bad situation.
You're basically describing a kind of a nightmare scenario there. And you're a long way away in terms of that bedside manner piece. You're a long way from just talking shop with an adjuster, right?
Yeah. It was one that we were able to balance some family issues, balance some issues involving the kids, and the lawsuit in general, because of some nuances involved in that case that were a little bit different, that made it a little bit more challenging on the, let's say, insurance coverage side of things. And so fortunately, those cases happen where people get hit and there's no insurance, or people get hit and there's very little insurance. And we try to do the best we can to get the best possible outcome under those circumstances. And that was one that had, the driver unfortunately had some drugs in his system. We don't know if he was actually impaired when he ran into her at 65 miles an hour without hitting his brakes. He also had a iPad in the car he was using as a his radio, and we don't know if he was playing with that whenever he ran into her, but it was just there was a whole host of circumstances that really we had to delve through it and kind of develop to get the best possible outcome we could for them. So it was and again, you're dealing with people who just lost their daughter, their wife, their mother, and I've kind of learned to tell clients early on that, hey, we'll give you as many updates as you want to hear. If there's nothing happening, we may not call you, just that way they have to move on in a sense to adjust to their new normal while we deal with that. Because unfortunately, the lawsuits can take several years and they don't need to relive that event every single day if they don't have to. So
that's interesting. That's something that I hadn't heard before, but that, as you said, that idea that you don't want to re-traumatize folks. So I'm curious, do you have, in a case like that, if there's no update, you're just gonna kind of leave them be, or are you still gonna check in maybe every, I don't know, month or two, just or will you truly just say no, we're gonna leave you alone, give you some space, try to heal?
It depends. In that situation, we were talking to the husband, who was the client. We would also talk to his father-in-law, her father, who lived there, and we could get some information updates from him. That way, he kind of stepped in as a surrogate parent. So if we needed some information that maybe we couldn't bother the father with because he still had to work to support the family and was not always around, we would do that. But at the same time, we told them early on that, hey, we'll give you as many updates as you want, but this is going to take time and it's not going to go quick. And kind of like no news is good news sometimes, right? So, call if you've got questions. If you do want updates from us, we'll give them to you. But a lot of clients are like, hey, look, I trust you, just do what you need to do and let me know when you need me. And in a situation like that, with a fatality case, that tends to be more of the approach. You have a client who's actively going through treatment, is actually missing work at that time ongoing. It's a little bit different because they've got stressors at home that they're trying to deal with, or getting new medical treatment, or providing updates as far as things that they're doing. But in a case like that, they wanted to take a backseat, so they did.
So this is one of the things that I'm always wanting to ask about. Just we've talked a bit about your history and some of these pivotal cases, and then I know that you've been at this for a little while now, so you've got some years of experience under your belt. That to me seems like an obvious practice tip, right? Just that kind of sensitivity to meeting clients where they're at. I'm wondering if you could share any other tips, and this is really wide ranging, of course. But I mean, if there are things that you think young attorneys or people who are just making that switch from the defense PI side, really anything. If you could share some of the lessons you've learned along the way.
Yeah, I think that learned a lot from my now partner about just listening to people, because sometimes they're very upsetting situations. Clients will get upset about things because they're dealing with a lot of stress at home with maybe not working, or they're getting medical bills that are piling up, shows up on their credit report. They get all sorts of things like that you have to learn to listen to them and using what they've told you to best deliver a message. Because again, it's very easy. It goes back to the bedside manner you talked about earlier. It's very easy to pick up the phone and go, hey, we can't help you. Good luck. Something like that. And instead it's like, no, I try to tell clients early that, look, if do the best we can, and at the very least, depending on certain like going back to that prison case, we'll at least want to get you answers. If we can't get you the compensation, if we can't get you
justice as however we define it in the civil system, at least if I can get you some answers to explain why this happened or what happened, then a lot of clients will be satisfied with that. So if you just talk to the clients as a normal person, you listen to them, and try not to, as a young lawyer, certainly try not to use too many of the law school terms that we all learn and we get so proud to be able to use. If you just talk to them normally, you listen to them, they will tell you what's important. And then our job is to counsel people and to tell them sometimes in things that are difficult, to deliver that message that they need to hear and to do it in a way that maybe is as painless as possible. When you got to give bad news, but you have to give good news, then great. You can tell them again in normal plain English, I've got good news. Here's what this means, and here are your next steps. And so, I guess for younger lawyers, and even the ones that we have here, it's just learning to talk to clients like a normal person, like you would talk to a friend or your parent. You wouldn't explain to your parents all these legal terms, so don't use the legal terms with your client. Just talk to them normal, and listen to the clients, and that really will get you a long way. So,
I think it's funny that and maybe we feel this way, especially now that we pay so much to learn these Latin words and get these degrees, that we feel like we need to put them to use.
Right. Right.
But no, I think that's really great advice. I'm wondering, in where you are in your practice now, what are I guess, do you have goals, either personal or for the practice, that are important to you over the next, pick a time horizon, but let's say over the next 3, 5, 10 years?
We are, we're a growing law firm, even though I've had one partner who retired somewhat recently, another partner left. And so here in the last 5 years, we've gone from, well, actually we had 2 retirements, 5 partners to just the 2 of us. And at the same time, we've grown. We've added employees. I think we've got 22 now, which is still small for a law office, but it's big for what we're doing. And I think we're going to continue to grow. I think our goal is hopefully to continue to spread our reach a little bit here in the state and be able to continue to help clients, but also be able to hopefully, bring on more staff people and help us make the staff people that we do have more efficient and ease their burden a little bit, because it is, from a lawyer side, can be very time consuming, and we spend a lot of time on the weekends and after hours working. But for the staff people, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for them to do their job. That the old AI thing that we're all getting harpooned with, it seems like daily in my email, with AI tool this, AI tool that, or whatever platforms we're using for certain things has got AI, Zoom, Google, everything else has got AI integrated. And so trying to adjust to that coming world too as well, so that we can find tools that work and that will hopefully make us better, represent our clients and help our clients. That's, I guess, some of the things I can see in the next maybe 5 years or so.
So I like the image of being harpooned with all the AI emails, and I think, yeah, we just can't seem to get away from those 2 letters. Are you finding ways to use that in your practice currently, or are you still at the stage of evaluating tools and maybe, I could honestly see just taking an approach of, well, let's wait for the dust to settle a little bit and then adopt these things once there are some clear, best in class tools or standards or something like that.
We have tried a couple tools that were good, but had some still kinks in it because AI, it seems like, has been around for just a couple of years now, at least for, I think, most of us. And then, but at the same time, we can't ignore it and can't wait for it all to get ironed out because, I mean, there's 5, 6 different big AI, companies out there, from Google to ChatGPT to Perplexity and some others out there. There's all these tools that they're constantly coming out with, and our practice, personal injury, is extremely competitive, and so if you snooze, you lose, right? So we're constantly evaluating different tools. I mean, the things that we use already, like again, Google and Gmail, that's already got AI built into it, and they're adding more and more to it. You just can't get away from it. So it's learning how to use those things. It seems like every month I'm looking at a different tool that we decide, is this something we could use or not use? Maybe doing a trial here or there. And so it is something that we're using a little bit. I've had to educate the associates, but not using ChatGPT to do legal research and write briefs for them, because as you know, there's been a growing handful of lawyers that keep getting in trouble for using ChatGPT, it seems like, to do legal research, and it finds them cases, but just cases that don't exist, help them make their points. So, we're trying to be very careful about that, and to keeping in mind that you can get in trouble if you don't know what you're doing, because it sounds good. It may not be accurate.
Right. No, I actually saw that there was some case I saw, or something I saw on LinkedIn, where it actually, one of these AI hallucinations led to Rule 11 sanctions, and no, it's you could really find yourself in trouble quick.
Yep. I mean, the most famous one was up in New York, but then there have been several. I heard from a judge here that there's been some here locally in our state. I read about one very, very recently, maybe a few weeks ago in Texas, where those lawyers are about to get in a lot of trouble for not only using AI to make up and unknowingly make up cases, but then doubling down when the judge says, "Hey, I need you to tell me why it is I don't need to sanction you." They then use AI to write that response. And that didn't help them because that also made up some things. They didn't learn their lesson, and so those lawyers are now facing some trouble. So
I'm almost speechless with that one. I mean, wow.
I don't know whether it's audacity or stupidity or just plain ignorance, but it or bravado, even whatever it is. It just I don't get it. Look, AI, I'm old enough to remember, Terminator or Terminator 2 and all those things, and Skynet, and be weary of all this stuff that's coming that we obviously still don't understand, because lawyers are citing this stuff in briefs despite the highly publicized nature of some lawyers getting in trouble using this stuff. And I guess we'll just continue to do things the old-fashioned way a little bit, while using AI where we can to make things simpler, whether it's helping write an email or helping write a script for something, but helping as opposed to using it solely to do that, I think, is the key. So,
yeah, I mean, I think given what you said about the 3 years of living, just pouring over 20 boxes of jail records. I mean, I can see that you would, I don't know, just I could see getting impatient with staff who are maybe too eager to use AI to kind of make their work easier.
Yeah. It's mainly there's a couple of lawyers, that I know that have used it, and I've talked to them and said, "Hey, you can use this, but be very, very careful with it." And have so far. I'm not using it for any briefs. They've used it to help maybe construct some difficult letters or some things like that, or construct even an argument. I know some lawyers have used it to construct an outline for a deposition that maybe they haven't taken one for this kind of witness before. And so they're able to take that as an outline and then use that and fill in details to the case and make it make sense. So there are some things you can use those things for that are helpful and maybe can save you some time or make you better. But it's here to stay, and so it's a matter of adjusting to it. So and doing it wisely.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's well said. I'm curious. So we're a little over time. I wanted to ask you one more question, but I don't want to keep you, given that I know you already work nights and weekends as it is.
Yeah, not a problem.
So you've given some really good advice for young attorneys. I think I'd love to kind of offer you a platform now to give advice. Well, let's see here. I don't know if you want to be giving advice to people contemplating a personal injury claim, but I just wonder if there are things that you wish your clients knew sometimes beforehand, either before a case starts or if there's not a case involved at all. I'm just curious if there's anything you would from your position as a plaintiff's attorney, personal injury attorney,
Yeah.
would want to say to just people at large.
Well, we have those discussions a lot with people about why they do or they don't have a case. I think the maybe one of the most common misconceptions is that if you have an injury case, you're going to get a lot of money. And a lot of people don't feel that way, but there is that, I think, not necessarily for our clients, but maybe it's those clients' parents or neighbors or cousins or friends or the guy down the street that had a case like yours and he got $100,000. Well, every case is different and every situation is different. And so they have to go in knowing that my case is unique and they should get a lawyer early, because unless you've been through this several times before, at least on the injury side of things, insurance adjusters deal with this all day, every day. And even if they're not trying to take advantage of you, you're still at a disadvantage because you don't, respectfully, you don't know what you're doing. And I'm not, so I'm going to take it to a professional, let a professional fix my car, hopefully fix it right the first time so that I don't make it worse. And unfortunately, some clients will wait. Maybe they trust what the adjuster tells them or what a neighbor or someone tells them. And at least on the personal injury side, most of us will do a consultation without charging anything. And so you at least should call and figure out, how does this work? What are my rights? What should I do? What should I not do? And that's even if you don't have a case that a lawyer is going to take, you at least ought to know going in what to expect and what to do and what not to do. So a lot of people call and say, hey, I'm not the suing kind. Well, just because you're calling a lawyer doesn't mean you're going to sue someone. So in fact, I think of all the cases that we have here, 20% maybe end up in a lawsuit. So another 80% get resolved without ever going to court, so to speak, or resulting in a lawsuit. So there's no harm in calling a lawyer and at least finding out what to do and what not to do.
I think that's really good advice. And you've I think that you have done a great job of taking your own advice of speaking plainly and not using legalese. And no, I think the analogy of taking your car to a mechanic rather than working on it oneself. I know in that case I've definitely made things worse when I've tried to do that. So no, I think that's really well said.
I wish I could. My dad was a mechanic in the military, and I wish I could fix stuff. My brother got that gene. I did not. So I can't fix anything. It's either call my brother or take it to a professional to fix it. So,
well, it seems like you got the it seems like you got the lawyer gene and are making the most of that. So it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. I don't want to cut you off, but I also want to be respectful of your time that you've already spent with me. Is there anything else that you feel like you would you would want to add for posterity? I'd also be glad to chat with you again in the future. So I don't want to. I don't want to cut you off if there's anything else you wanted to share.
No, I appreciate the time. I haven't done this before, so it's been easy. I know you and I have talked several times after meeting a few months ago in Idaho at an event. So I appreciate the time, and certainly we're happy to do it again, hopefully without any technical issues next time. So
Okay. Yeah. Well, I think that I think the one thing that I definitely want to have an update on the ballpark report. So we'll have to cover that for sure.
Yep, I better get busy then. Yep, I need to get busy.
All right.
So.
All right, good. Well, thank you again, Jason. It's been such a pleasure. I've really learned so much, and again, just super great. Just so grateful that you took the time to chat with me.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.